Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, and we're going to talk about Superman and trademark issues and DC Comics Suicide Run. Not Suicide Squad, but their Suicide Run. It seems like they are really going all in on changing a bunch of classic characters. And we think it's to be current year, but it really isn't. To be current year. It's in some regards, it's to sidestep copyright and trademark law, right? This is really interesting because Ethan Van Sciver has actually been talking a lot about this. Former DC Comics artist, worked on a number of books. I don't know if he worked on Superman or not, though, but he's best known for Green Lantern. I think he was on Flash too. And he has postulated that the reason there are all these changes to classic characters, most notably Superman, that Clark Kent's son is now Superman, and he's in a relationship with this pink-haired boy here. It wasn't just to grab headlines, it's also to sidestep some copyright issues that the families of the creator of Superman don't get paid. And they changed the American Way motto and all of that. It's so interesting, though, to read in the trusted media sources, different comic book news sites, that they go out of their way to explain why Ethan Van Sciver is wrong. But they're never going to name check him. So weird. He actually is the one who spoiled the bisexual Superman reveal. He also said that he thinks that Clark Kent is going to go away in favor of Jonathan Kent, which is a Superman that DC owns 100%. They don't have to share this version of the character. It's their own creation. They don't have to share them with the families of Shuster and Siegel. And I think there's probably some truth to that. And also the motto, truth, justice, and the American way. They're trying to say, hey, this was not intended to be his motto, and it never should have been his motto, and it had nothing to do with DC trying to sidestep, trademark and copyright law. But then, in that regards, it had nothing to do with DC trying to be progressive either. They're not really that progressive. They're just trying to disguise all these changes to these classic characters, disguise it with diversity and inclusion. Beards. I guess that's what they're going to do. So we'll talk about this. A lot of talk about these theories without name checking Van Sciver, regardless of what you think of him. This has nothing to do with what you personally think of Ethan Van Sciver, just that he has pointed this stuff out. And it's amazing to see all these comic book news outlets go out of their way to sidestep giving him any credit whatsoever. They don't want to do that because, oh my God, that might legitimize Comicsgate or some such nonsense, because we're going to get cooties. Cooties if we even talk about these YouTubers. So stupid, so petty, so comics current year. Let's talk about it before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 239,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. We do talk about the comic book industry. Somewhat. There's been a lot of drama in the comic book industry. Mainly, we're watching the Western comic book industry kind of sputter out. It's having some fits here and there. Sometimes, we get a couple of hits, fits and hits. Spawn or Berserker or something like that. But for every one of those books, there's 200 other books that aren't performing. And, we've got comic shops closing. We've got all kinds of drama surrounding the distribution of floppy comics. It's kind of a mess. There's been a lot of talk about Superman, bisexual Superman. It's so weird. A lot of these blogs are still running with the narrative that DC Comics creators were getting death threats over the bisexual Superman thing, and they had to be protected by the LAPD, but the creators don't live in LA. Maybe some people at the DC office. I'm not saying people didn't send stupid threats. You should never do that. You should never, ever do that. But it's interesting that the media kind of ran with this narrative. And that's the truth now. The truth is people got death threats. They had to be protected by the police, even if they lived thousands of miles away from Los Angeles. Anyway, let's go with this first. This is coming from Games Radar, formerly known as Newsarama. Newsarama, not even important enough to have its own top-level domain anymore. All the comic news has been rolled into this video game website. Looks like DC is going to kill Superman again. A couple of days ago, DC is planning on an ominous 30th anniversary celebration for the death of Superman in 2022. That was a mess. Do you remember that? That was probably the most 90s thing ever. X-Force and the death of Superman pretty much defined early 90s comics, right? At least for me anyway. I remember both being like a huge, huge deal. DC has been putting the current leading bearer of the Superman mantle. See, this is some bullshit. The Superman mantle. Come on, Supermantle. Jon Kent in the spotlight in recent weeks through a public examination of his sexuality. At the same time, his dad, Kal-El, is departing for the dangerous and deadly War World, a planet-like space station populated by the worst warriors and criminals around, with his new team, the Authority, in tow. As all this is going on, DC is also updating Superman's classic slogan from the phrase "Truth, Justice, and the American Way" to "Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow," showing the publisher has a keen, forward-looking eye when it comes to the Man of Steel. Again, according to Ethan Van Sciver, it has nothing to do with that. It's all about the trademark issue and trying to detach the Superman mantle from the families of the creators of Superman. With Jon Kent left behind as Earth's protector while Kal-El departs on a mission to depose the deadly Mongol alien overlord of War World, DC also seems to be foreshadowing a more permanent shift in Superman's status quo, both for Jon Kent and his dad. What's actually coming for Kal-El, and how does his fate play directly into his son's career as Superman? And more importantly, how does DC seem to be setting up the future to repeat the past with a rehash of one of Superman's darkest days? DC has been dropping some big hints about what to expect, and we think we have an idea where Superman's status quo is headed. You better believe it's a doozy. It's a doozy. What's going to happen to Kal-El's Superman? We'll say it right off the bat. Looks like Superman's going to die in 2022. With Kal-El returning to the great big fortress of solitude in the sky, and Jon Kent taking his place as the DC Universe's main and perhaps only Superman. Again, not to be progressive, not to necessarily shake things up, but according to Van Sciver, to sidestep those pesky royalties. Sidestep all of that. That story, The Golden Age Part 1, Jon and Kal-El aid Star Labs in sealing a dimensional breach in space that puts out energy which harms Kal-El, but not Jon. Seems the breaches are being opened by none other than Amanda Waller, who's gathering data on Kal-El's weaknesses. Jon warns his father that while he was in the future with a legion of superheroes, he learns of his father's death, and it would have been something to do with the dimensional breach. However, Jon is able to protect his father from the final breach, which he believes is meant to cause Kal-El's death. This leads Jon to question his father's fate, though there's a lot more to suggest Jon wasn't wrong about Kal-El's ultimate fate, even if he wasn't quite right about its cause. Not least of these clues is Mongol noting that Kal-El is dying as he observes the two Supermen in the aftermath of the battle, in which Jon predicted. Superman is dying, and he observes the two Supermen in the aftermath of the battle, which Jon predicted his father would fall, etc., etc. So yeah, they're going into a lot of details to what's going on here, but yeah, it sounds like they're setting up another death of Superman. Again, everybody is going to be like, this is fantastic. Look how progressive DC is. And it really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's actually regressive. If, again, it's a big if, if they're doing this to sidestep the copyright issue. And I think, this might have a lot to do with a lot of mantles. I mean, look at the Superman movie they're working on right now. I think they're going to do President Superman, right? Again, that's a newer character. It's not Kal-El. It's not the Superman. Look at all the issues around Superboy. Decades of legal battles. Wouldn't it be easier just to pay people? Pay the families? Wouldn't it? But yeah, 30 years ago, it was a huge thing. It was a mess. Actually, the death of Superman. I mean, there was some good stuff to come out of it, but it definitely, if you could encapsulate the early 90s era of comics speculating, and it would absolutely be the death of Superman, X-Force, and the early Image comics. Screen Rant defending the change to the logo. Superman's American Way motto is way more complicated than you think. Was it really intended by his writers, or was he never meant to say it at all? According to Screen Rant, the popular catchphrase never appeared in the comics, but rather got its start in the Adventures of Superman radio serials. It was subsequently dropped later in the war. When it was clear the Allies would win, the writers of the radio serial most likely wanted to present a unified front between the Americans, British, and USSR. It was brought back in the 50s television show. And again, it never appeared in any comic up until that point. Can someone verify that? That might actually be the case. Neither the radio serial nor the television show did Superman actually say the famous phrase himself. It wasn't until 1978, Richard Donner's Superman, that Superman, then played by Christopher Reeve, said the line, to which an incredulous Lois Lane responded, "You're going to end up fighting every elected official in this country." Lois wasn't the only one shocked at Superman's sincerity. The phrase at the time was more often lampooned than played seriously, especially in the aftermath of the turbulent American 60s. Now they're saying it was a joke. Truth, justice, and the American way is a joke. It was lampooned. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's a stupid thing for Superman to say. God. Point of fact, DC Comics does not even have a current trademark on Superman's catchphrase. Their last one expired in 2003. Again, this is a dig at Ethan Van Sciver, who went digging for the trademark info, but they're not going to mention his name. They're just going to put this out there. While numerous attempts have been made by the company to trademark the phrase, again, all have failed. This might be one of those reasons why Superman's new catchphrase is officially truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, though there are certainly other reasons. As an international brand, Superman is recognized everywhere in the world, even in the countries that are at odds with America. That actually is true. If you want to sell a Superman movie in China, you have to make sure it's a better tomorrow. But here we go, guys. Those who believe that Superman's catchphrase is an integral part of his identity are basing that assumption on who they believe Superman ought to be, not who he is. Oh, for God's sake. Anyway, yeah, I have to agree. This does feel like a trademark thing. This does feel like a reason that we're seeing so many superheroes, mantles being taken up by other characters, because they can say, well, yeah, it looks like that character that was created in the 50s or 60s, but it's not actually that character. That character was, Peter Parker. Our character is Miles Morales. And yes, he's Spider-Man, but he's not that Spider-Man. He's a Spider-Man. It's a mantle. And when people come looking for royalties on the current version of Spider-Man or Superman or whatever, they can just rebuff them and say, well, fine them. Now we're going to have Spider-Man is now Spider-Girl, but also Spider-Man, and it's a different character. And that's it. And that's how we sidestep it. But we still have Spider-Man comics. It's ridiculous. But the reality is, DC Comics is running out of steam. Marvel Comics is running out of steam. I don't think that any of these replacement characters are going to have the longevity that the original characters have. They will, they're going to try to force people to like them, but I don't think it's going to work. I think, it's going to be a temporary fix, maybe until the lawyers get things worked out, or, some of these companies feel like, the families have died, so we can go back to using Clark Kent now, or some stupid shit like that. But the reality is that, to the American public, Clark Kent is always Superman. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. That's how this works. So I'm going to wrap this up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.